The ability to one-shot kill an opponent from any distance is one of the most exciting things you can do in any game. A sniper rifle in the hands of a talented player has the ability to completely turn the tide of a game, but mastery of sniping requires aim and exceptional map awareness to be the most effective. I've been focused on sniping in competitive games for the last 20 years or so, starting back in the early days of Counter-Strike and Halo, and in pretty much every FPS game I've played since those days. Throughout this time, I've spent countless hours studying the best players and trying to understand exactly what makes them so good. In this video, I'm going to share what I've learned with you to hopefully make you a better sniper and have more fun while you're gaming. I made a similar video a couple years ago, but I wanted to use this opportunity to make an updated guide with what I've learned since I made that first video. There's a lot of ground to cover here, so I decided to break this video into a few different parts. I'm also going to include timestamps in the timeline so you can bounce around to whichever parts make most sense for you. The topics we're going to be covering today are sniper and build suggestions, gaming gear and settings for both controller and mouse and keyboard players, movement, pre-aiming and angle management, and finally aiming practice and building good habits. Since Destiny is constantly changing which gear and perks are at the top of the meta, this video will mostly focus on developing good fundamentals that will help you for years to come regardless of the meta. So let's get started with choosing the right gear for the job. When it comes to snipers in Destiny, there are two things you pretty much always want to be looking for. These are a low zoom level and the ability to aim down sights quickly. For the zoom stat, you're ideally wanting to stay at 45 zoom or less. This is because a lower zoom level allows you to have a wider field of view, which makes it easier to quickly acquire targets in close quarters. Maps in Destiny PvP are usually not very big, so we don't need a sniper with some huge zoom factor. As for the perks, you pretty much always want either quick draw, snapshot, or a combination of both. Personally, I tend to prefer quick draw if I can only pick one because it improves both your aim down sight speed as well as allowing you to switch to your other weapon faster. Snapshot on the other hand only improves your aim down sight speed, but it does a better job of that than using quick draw alone. However, by mixing in a few of the perks that we'll talk about in the next section, we can close that gap a bit, and to me it scopes in fast enough with just quick draw plus some enhanced sniper targeting mods. A few top picks currently are snipers like Beloved, Revoker, Bite of the Fox, Eye of Soul, Supremacy, Omniscient Eye, Twilight Oath, the Ikelos Sniper, Widow's Bite, and Distant Tumulus. Each of these have access to both a low zoom magnification and good perks. Some of them will be sunset in Season 12 though during Beyond Light, which means that they won't be able to be leveled up to the maximum power level for Trials of Osiris and Iron Banner, but they'll still be just fine for regular Crucible. I'll also be making videos about my favorite new snipers when Beyond Light comes out, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss those. By the way, I recently turned on channel memberships, so if you'd like a cool little badge next to your name when you comment, and the ability to use fun Pattycakes emotes, you can click the join button under the video. We also have a private chat dedicated to YouTube channel members in our community Discord. Outside of Snapshot and Quick Draw, there are also a few other cool perks to be looking for. A few of my favorites are Opening Shot, which grants you additional accuracy and range on the opening shot of an attack, Moving Target, which grants you improved movement speed and aim down sight speed, as well as a passive buff to your aim assist even while you're stationary, Demolitionist, which grants grenade energy for each kill while using the weapon. Also, activating your grenade ability reloads the weapon from reserves. This perk is especially good on Top Tree Dawnblade to activate that Heat Rises perk more often. Box Breathing, which allows snipers to deal more headshot damage and gain additional range after aiming down sights for a short time, and Vorpal Weapon, which deals extra damage against guardians who are in their super. Aside from the sniper rifle itself, there are also a number of armor mods that can really help to improve your effectiveness with a sniper. Many of these might change which slots they fit into during Beyond Light, so I'm just going to list the mods here to look for, and I'll provide you with some updated sniper builds once we know how they'll all work in Beyond Light. Sniper rifle targeting improves target acquisition, accuracy, and aim down sight speeds for snipers. This one is nearly mandatory in my opinion if you want to make sniping as easy as possible. It also makes the gap between quick draw and snapshot for aim down sight speed a little bit less noticeable. Sniper scavenger mods allow you to pick up extra bullets from the green ammo bricks that appear on the ground. At higher levels of play, the ammo economy regarding who has sniper bullets and who doesn't can often determine who wins a scenario. Scavenger perks give you the upper hand here. Unflinching sniper aim helps to reduce flinch when you're getting hit. The difference can be quite drastic, so they're definitely worth using if you can afford them in your build. And dexterity mods allow you to switch between your weapons faster. This can often really be helpful when you land a body shot with a sniper rifle and you want to switch to your primary weapon a bit faster to finish off the kill, especially in times where you don't have quick draw. The next section I want to cover is choosing the right gear for the job, both for controller and mouse and keyboard players. Let's cover the controller first since it's a bit simpler. The main thing I always recommend when it comes to playing controller is to have some method of never needing to take your thumbs off of either joystick. There are many ways to accomplish this. If you can't afford an aftermarket controller like a Scuff, Xbox Elite, or Astro controller, you can change your button bindings to something like a bumper jumper setup, where you jump with a shoulder button press that doesn't require you to take your thumb off of the thumbstick. You can also change over to a claw type grip, where you use your index finger to press the buttons so that you can keep your thumb on the stick. But I've always found this to be a bit awkward personally. A lot of top players in Destiny 1 use this particular method of controller grip. If you have a bit of extra money to spend, I would recommend one of those controllers that have the extra paddles or buttons on the backside that gives you a few more button options. These are really awesome for accomplishing that same idea as playing claw grip, but to me they're a little bit more comfortable. You can also play around with some of the controller joystick extenders such as Control Freaks. Some players seem to really like them while others don't. A few good controllers to check out are the Scuff controller, the new Astro controller, and the Xbox Elite controller. Sensitivity recommendations seem to be all over the place. I'm friends with many top controller players who range between 4 and 10 sensitivity. It seems just about no one plays under 3 sensitivity since it's just a bit too slow to turn around, but anything else is fair game and it just comes down to personal preference. One tip I'll give you from my friend Shadow, who's one of the most talented controller snipers that I know, is to utilize your hunter dodge to turn around 180 degrees quickly whenever you need to. This allows him to play at a lower overall sensitivity and be pretty accurate, but still turn around quickly when he needs to. One of the big disadvantages of playing controller on PC at a higher level is not being able to turn around instantly like you can on a mouse and keyboard. Using this hunter dodge ability allows you to do that as long as you have the ability available. I'll put a link to both his YouTube and Twitch channels in the description so you can check out his gameplay. He's really an incredible player. For mouse and keyboard players, I have a lot more to say on this subject since it's my personal wheelhouse. I've studied top mouse and keyboard players for literally over 20 years now, since back in the days when I used to compete in early Counter-Strike. When it comes to choosing a mouse, I think there's a few crucial things to think about. In no particular order of importance, these are the shape, weight, build quality, and sensor performance. These days, just about any top gaming mouse will have a great sensor, so that's not really something you need to worry about anymore. Build quality has also been on the rise over the past few years, so generally that's not something you should worry about as long as it's a mouse with a lot of favorable reviews. Shape is a matter of personal preference. The key is to find something that's really comfortable for you and provides a great level of control. There are a lot of different grip styles out there like fingertips, claw, palm, and many hybrids of each of these. The key is to find a grip style that's comfortable for you and provides excellent mouse control, and then combine that with a mouse shape that makes your preferred grip style feel the best. This also depends a lot on how big your hands are, so keep that in mind when you're shopping for a mouse. When it comes to weight, generally speaking, lighter is better. I used to use a pretty heavy mouse like the Logitech G502, but after using lighter and lighter mice over the years, I've really come to prefer mice that are under about 80 grams. The market is full of incredible mice these days, and I'll link to several in the description for you to check out. A few of the top ones I'll mention here quickly are the Logitech G Pro Wireless, Razer Viper Ultimate and Viper Mini, Glorious Model O, O-, D, and D-, the Cooler Master MM710, Endgame Gear XM1, and the Ponage Ultra Custom, which is my current favorite mouse. Just do your homework and you can find a mouse that's a perfect fit for your needs. Also, you want to pair your mouse of choice with a really great mousepad and keyboard. For your mousepad, make sure it's on the larger side if you want to play on a low to medium sensitivity. I'll link to a bunch of different ones to check out in the description. This really comes down to personal preference. For me, I like a faster mousepad, but many players like them on the slower side as well. For keyboards, choose something with mechanical switches that activates immediately when you press the buttons. The world of keyboards is full of great options, and I'll link to several below. Another important piece of tech that many people overlook is your screen. Ideally, you want a monitor with a really fast response time and a high refresh rate, especially if you're on PC. If you can swing it, I'd recommend going at least 144Hz for the refresh rate. I've actually been using a 240Hz monitor lately that I plan to make a video about soon, and it's really awesome playing at that higher refresh rate. When it comes to your sensitivity, there are a lot of different schools of thought. I think most players tend to snipe best at a slightly lower sensitivity. In my previous video, I explained how sensitivity works with things like EDPI and cm per 360 measurements. If you're not familiar with those terms, check out my video on how to get the most out of aim training with KOVAAK'S FPS Aim Trainer. The sensitivity section starts at about 9 minutes and 13 seconds into that video. As a quick refresher, cm per 360 is the amount of centimeters it takes on your mousepad to make a full 360-degree rotation while in hipfire mode in the game. For sniping, I'd recommend somewhere between 25 and 60 cm per 360, which translates to between 3 and 7 in-game sensitivity at 800 dpi. Your in-game sensitivity and mouse DPI both influence how fast your mouse actually feels. So if you aren't familiar with that connection, I highly recommend taking a few minutes to watch the video I mentioned and learn how they work together to determine your actual sensitivity. Personally, I've been playing 3 sensitivity at 1200 dpi lately, which puts me at about 38 centimeters for a 360-degree rotation in the game. This is right in the same neighborhood as most of the top players that you'll watch on either Twitch or YouTube. Also, I keep my ADS modifier at 10, but you can feel free to raise or lower that as you like. I know many top players who keep it at 10, but several who also raise it a bit or make it lower. The main reason I like to keep it at 10 is that I find it's easier to switch between many different games and have my overall sensitivity feel about the same. Your sensitivity also influences how much of your fingers, wrist, and arm are involved when you're moving the mouse around. Lower sensitivity players need to use a lot more of their shoulder and elbow to make big adjustments, while higher sense players can get by with mostly finger and wrist adjustments for aiming unless they need to make some huge turns. Another thing that is often overlooked when it comes to your PC setup is your in and out of game settings. You want to turn your video settings pretty low to get the most frames per second possible from your computer. Higher FPS translates to less input delay, which helps you to aim better in the game. You want to turn off VSync, and if you insist on running G-Sync, my understanding is that it's best to cap your frame rate at about 5 frames less than your monitor's equivalent refresh rate in order to minimize the input delay. For example, if your monitor is set to 144 Hz and you want to run G-Sync, then you'd cap your frames around 138 to 140. Personally though, I just turn off G-Sync so that I can produce as many frames as possible, which also seems to give you an advantage in FPS games according to many of the videos that I've seen on the subject. I'll link to an excellent one from Linus Tech tips in the description where they showed that players might have an advantage using 300 FPS even on just a 60 Hz monitor. I also recommend turning off enhanced pointer precision in your Windows mouse settings as well as any acceleration in your mouse software. I've heard mixed information about whether this actually changes in the game or not, but to play it safe, I just turn off mouse acceleration anywhere I can in my system. Also, be sure to double check that your Windows mouse pointer speed is in the middle at 6 out of 11. And yes, I do know that some players use linear acceleration curves with some success, but that's outside of the scope of this particular video and probably not worth getting into for players who are newer to mouse and keyboard. Okay, now that we have our setup dialed in, let's start talking about the mechanics of movement and aiming in the game. I've created a ton of videos about first-person shooter fundamentals like angle management, slicing the pie, managing your distance to a corner, and practicing good crosshair placement. I'll link to these in the description so you can get a more detailed take on these at your convenience. For now though, let's cover a high-level overview of the 2 most important things when it comes to sniping. These are your positioning and crosshair placement. You see, most newer players watch high-level talented players on streams and videos hitting these wild flick shots, and then they try to go emulate them in their own game. That's fine to practice sometimes, and once in a while you're going to hit some of those shots yourself if you do give it enough time. But that's not the best way to snipe 95% of the time. Instead, what you want to do is to focus on your crosshair placement so that you're pre-aiming where the enemy is most likely to be. This means when you're holding an angle waiting for someone to walk onto your screen, you're holding the crosshair either at head level or just slightly below if you anticipate that they might slide under your screen, and all you have to do is make a very minor adjustment and click. If you study the top snipers in pretty much any competitive FPS game, you'll learn that good crosshair placement is absolutely essential. For example, here's a clip of professional CSGO player Device utilizing perfect crosshair placement and pre-aiming skills to make it look like players just walk right into his crosshair. Good snipers make sniping look easy because they basically let players walk right into their crosshair with their excellent pre-aiming skills. If you're a smart player, you should only have to hit those crazy flick shots occasionally. Most of the time, your crosshair should already be roughly in the right spot ahead of time. I think the best way to practice this is to watch top players on streams and videos and study how they move. Watching good snipers in Destiny 2 tournaments is a great way to learn this. The top players almost always have their crosshair pre-aimed at the perfect spot. One extra tip that I'll give you here is to not hold your crosshair too close to a wall. A mistake I see a lot of newer players making is to hold their crosshair exactly on a corner, but with an average human reaction speed of about 200 milliseconds, there's just no way you can shoot in time when someone's sliding quickly by you. It's better to hold your crosshair just a little bit away from the wall and give yourself enough time to react and hit the shot. This concept of good pre-aiming is also true when you're the one who's moving and entering into a lane where you need to land a snipe. You can pull off a move where you slide into the lane and then flick your crosshair 90 degrees to the left or the right and then shoot, while you're intentionally moving your crosshair right into the spot where someone is most likely to be located. Using this technique will really test your map knowledge. You need to familiarize yourself with all of the most common angles where players like to sit, and mentally be ready to aim at those spots before you enter the area. Along with practicing good crosshair placement, you also need to be conscious of your movement. Your goal as a player is to always be just one shot away from cover. This means that if you're peeking a lane and you're the one who gets hit first, you can easily escape behind something to recover your health. One of the biggest mistakes you'll see from newer players is being positioned way out in the open on different maps, where they have nowhere to run if they start losing a gunfight. If you're out in no man's land and get into the wrong side of a team shot fight, you're almost certainly dead. On the other hand, if you're smart about your positioning, you might be able to duck behind cover and get out of there, or at least delay your death until teammates can help you with the fight. When you're moving around the map, you also want to be sliding a lot, probably way more than you're already doing. Sliding makes you much harder to hit if you're cut out away from cover, and it might just save your life. You can slide into cover, out of cover, and even just in the open to be evasive and escape a bad situation. I also wanted to give you a quick bonus tip with sniping that's specific to Destiny because of the weird flinch mechanic. In Destiny, if your crosshair is off the target and you get shot, it will tend to push your crosshair towards the target. On the other hand, if your crosshair is on the target and you get flinched, it'll push you off of the target. Knowing how this works, you can use the system to be patient with your shot and only click at the right time to basically get free hits. I personally hate how the system works, but since it's in the game, I figure I might as well explain it. Hopefully sometime in the future they'll change how this one works. So that mostly covers the basic mechanics of movement, positioning, and pre-aiming, but what about your actual mechanical aim and the ability to make quick adjustments? What's the best way to improve your raw aiming skill? This part depends a bit on your input device of choice. On controller, your options are a bit more limited, especially on console. I found one of the best ways to practice your aim is to equip PvP loadouts and go into some PvE areas and fight some humanoid targets. For example, the Trossland in EDZ is a good one for this. Run around the map sweating your little butt off practicing your slide sniping, hitting only headshots with your primary weapon, and rapidly target switching. It might seem kinda silly, but this type of low stakes practice can really help you out when you're trying to improve your aiming dexterity. I would also recommend playing as many private match scrims as you possibly can. These types of matches typically remove all of the shenanigans like power ammo, constant supers, and mountaintops, and help you focus on your movement and gun skill like not much else in the game. If you're looking for a good place to find people to do these with, my Discord server has plenty of people who like to scrim on every platform. You can join us at discord.gg/pattycakes. When it comes to mouse and keyboard, I'm a huge fan of aim training with a program like KOVAAK'S 2.0 of the meta. I've been aim training pretty much every week for the past year, and I've seen some huge improvements to my aim overall. I'll link to my newest video on the subject on screen as well as in the description. If you have even an extra 20 minutes a day to spend on aim training, I think it's a great way to improve your mouse control. The scenarios that seem to help me most with sniper aim are small dot scenarios like one wall 6 targets small and extra small, moving dot scenarios like bounce 180 and one wall 5 targets pasu, reaction scenarios like target acquisition flick horizontal and reflex flick, and a particular one I really like called Destiny 2 hand cannon and sniper. Practicing a good mix of these will really help you out in game. However, you still need to spend some time in game to feel comfortable with your particular sniper of choice. I'd recommend the same technique here of practicing your snipes in PvE as well as playing some private match scrims while you're sniping. Hopefully this video gave you some ideas on how to improve your sniping game in Destiny. If you enjoyed it, please drop a thumbs up rating to help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss my next video. I have a lot of similar ones planned for the next few months. I stream every week over on Twitch. You can watch me live over at twitch.tv/pattycakespc. I'm also active on Twitter and Instagram. My tag is PattycakesGG on both platforms. So if you enjoyed this video, I have a recommendation for you. This one's all about angle management, a technique called slicing the pie, and tips on how to move well in any FPS game. It's the top video over on the right side of your screen. The bottom one is whatever YouTube's algorithm thinks you might like the best. That's all for now. Catch you guys next time.